Hello, friends. Welcome back to the PlayStation LiveCast. I'm here with two of my video game dev heroes, Greg Cassavan and Amir Rao from Supergiant.
Hello.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's always such an honor to be able to talk to you guys.
Thanks a lot.
I really love your games. So we're here to talk about Pyre today, which is your follow-up to Transistor, which came out a while ago to great success. Pyre is a very different game than the kind of stuff you guys have put out in the past. Give me a quick rundown of the general idea behind Pyre.
Yeah, so Pyre is a game in which you lead your band of exiles to freedom through this ancient series of competitions spread across this kind of mystical purgatory setting that you're going to see here in a bit. We wanted to make a game that had a larger cast of characters than what we have been able to do before. Our previous games, Bastion and Transistor, are kind of focused on these rather solitary feeling journeys at times of these specific characters, and we wanted to make something that kind of could often have a more upbeat feel, almost like a fantasy road trip kind of thing, as you kind of go across this vast land and kind of have this group of characters who has to pull each other through these tough situations. Yeah, tough situations like this trial that we're seeing right here. Can you explain to me this weird kind of like fantasy sport that you guys have created here for Pyre? Yeah, so this is a mystical competition known as the Rites. The Rites. And these characters, it's something that is quite secretive in this world, and these characters that you meet early on have kind of only heard about it, and they need your help in order to even sort of discover whether it exists or not. And here they're kind of experiencing a vision of it. They're seeing what it really is for the first time and discovering that it does have this kind of competitive feel to it, where they're pitted against other groups of exiles who are also trying to be free. And so it kind of there can only be one in that sense. And they would really like to be free. They would like to return to their homes and loved ones. So together with your help, they will go through and press on. And that shot that we just saw of the caravan kind of careening through this lush landscape here kind of goes back to that fantasy road trip vibe that you were talking about before. We saw a close-up of the interior of the caravan a minute ago. That's the other side of the game, is that you're kind of exploring here. Amir, can you tell me a little about that side?
So, you know, you're actually going through day by day on this journey, and part of that journey is figuring out, you know, the kind of decisions you want to make. So you can spend your time basically, you know, studying more about the Rites, or bringing your exiles up to speed and preparing them, or just sort of exploring and foraging in the landscape. All these decisions come together with like also trying to get closer to your characters and talk to them and interact with them. And it's just part of the sort of the experience outside of the competitive Rites is sort of managing your exiles and managing the whole journey.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So there is kind of a progression system, kind of a light progression system in place here, but it's very choice-driven. You have to decide. You only have so much time to train with these people or to study, and they help you along the way in certain ways. How are you guys approaching that progression system? Yeah, we want the decisions to feel kind of very expressive for the player. It's not necessarily putting the player under a ton of pressure like these kind of life or death type situations at every turn. It's more like, who do you want to get closer to? How do you want to spend your time right now? What aspects of your characters do you want to improve right now? Feeling some time pressure because you have to get to these specific locations in time for the next Rite to take place, but hopefully it's a sense that you could kind of stretch your legs in the setting, and kind of the way it's presented to you is that you got to keep busy around here because it's a world of exiles, and they, you know, if they kind of grow too idle, then they can start to get really get down in the dumps. So your guys are trying to keep busy and keep each other cheerful and that sort of thing. Huh. So the Rites that we're seeing again on the screen here, was that kind of the core of Pyre? Was that the original idea, or did you guys kind of decide on the vibe and the style of the game and then kind of figure out how the gameplay was going to work after that?
I think at the core of Pyre is that we wanted to make a multi-character game, and that actually influenced both the aspects that you're seeing here, which is, you know, we wanted a game with more characters that you could get closer to, that you could talk to, that could talk to each other, and we also were interested in that from like the gameplay experience as well, of doing like a multi-character game, because we consider it a party-based RPG, and just sort of figuring out well, what kind of gameplay works in that situation, and what kind of dynamics and mechanics would feed into that, and then on top of that, connecting those two aspects of what you're doing inside the rights and what you're doing outside the rights.
Cool.
So a lot of that for us is just natural. We started in that place of trying to do a multi-character thing, and kind of spun out and grew out from there.
So are you guys looking at any sort of like proper multiplayer modes for this? It seems like an obvious fit, but it's not something you guys have really tackled before.
Yeah, it's something that we're quite interested in overall, though our focus is very much on the single player kind of campaign experience, these characters and their stories, and that has always been at the forefront of our games, and is very much at the forefront of Pyre. Though multiplayer, yeah, is something that we are very much investigating to see whether it's something we could do properly, and by that I mean not at the expense of the single player, and also just doing it well in its own right. We have some folks on the team who very much have the chops for this sort of thing. Andrew, our CTO, worked on Modern Warfare 1 and 2. We're working on.
So he might have a good idea.
Yeah,
something like that.
Some of our guys have been sort of to the top of the mountain when it comes to knowing what it takes to build a great multiplayer game, and though with that for us comes I think a great deal of respect for what it takes to do that well. So we're still pre-alpha. What we're showing here is very much kind of representative of where we're going, but the game isn't coming until sometime next year, so we still have some key decisions to make when it comes to things like that.
Yeah. Cool. So I want to talk a little bit about the writing in the game, the story itself. You used to work as a writer. You used to write about games, but now you're actually writing games.
Yeah.
How has that journey been, and how are you? Do you feel like you're growing even more with Pyre? Because I mean, obviously, books are central to the experience in Pyre.
Yeah. So I mean, writing for games for me has been in short a dream come true. Bastion is the first game I got to just do the writing for. Essentially, thanks to working with old friends of mine like Amir, and it was just the first chance I had to be able to do something like that, and I've just always been really struck by games for their ability to tell stories, and really wanted to try and do that. And thankfully, I've had more chances since to do it, and with each game we've made, I think we've tried to push ourselves in that regard, do something new and interesting. And yeah, and this time it's funny because we've used voiceover so extensively in our previous games, and this time we wanted to use text more extensively, and some of the story is delivered through written text, which is a more traditional way of stories unfolding in games. But I think hopefully even here we're doing something interesting with it, where just the act of reading in this game you discover early on is quite powerful, because it's a world in which literacy has been outlawed for a long time, so you're of made aware that your mere ability to read as both as a player and as a person makes you quite important to the characters around you here, and hopefully that makes the experience of reading in Pyre feel very active and like it's a core part of the game.
Cool. We're just about out of time, but the last thing I wanted to touch on is this amazing narrator, the guy who is kind of calling out, he's basically commentating the rights as you're doing them, and he's like kind of condescending, but also like in this really very flowy, like old English type of way. Like, how are you writing that? By the way, is that Logan doing
that? That is
Logan.
none other than Logan Cunningham, who's the voice of the narrator in Bastion, and the voice of in Transistor as well. Yeah, we have a ton of fun with that character, and he's kind of this mysterious kind of MC almost of this competition. And you're right that he doesn't seem to like you very much, or kind of thinks you're kind of wasting his time at first. But you'll learn a lot more about him as the game goes on. But yeah, we have great fun with him. He adds a lot of color to the game, we think.
Awesome. I can't wait. So that's Pyre. It's coming to PS4 in 2017.
That's right.
Great. Anything else you want to say to the PlayStation audience before we let you go?
No, I mean we just really appreciate that our games have just found an audience on the PS4 and on the Vita as well in the case of Bastion. So yeah, we love hearing what you think. We're Supergiant Games on Twitter, easy to get a hold of. So yeah, keep letting us know what you think of our stuff.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot for joining us, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
That is Pyre. It's coming out next year on PS4.
PlayStation